Last year, I ended up doing two projects where I ended up resenting the work. Now, the clients were really happy with it, the artists were really happy with it, I was really happy with the mixes, but to get those jobs on the board, I dropped my rates quite significantly, and that ended up me putting myself in a position where I resented doing the work because I didn't value myself from the get.
All right, just a quick side note here because I want to clarify something really important. There's a difference between dropping your rates out of desperation to win a gig and providing discounts as part of an ongoing relationship. Because I have regular clients, engineers, producers, labels, where some projects, they have tighter budgets. And in those cases, I'm happily meeting them with where they're at. That's just part of building long-term trust and a great working partnership with the team. The mistake I'm talking about in this circumstance, in this video for you guys, is when I've lowered my value at the start of a new relationship just to get a job through the door. That's a mindset that has led me to resenting some of my projects. And I'm not saying you should never give discounts or avoid, being accommodating, especially to long-term clients that you build faith and trust with. It's more so to not lean on the pricing statement as a tool for getting new clients in. Now, back to the video.
So I'm going to show you some of the biggest mistakes to avoid when it comes to quoting projects, the right questions to ask, and how to turn inquiries into paying gigs where you're actually valued. Now, before we dive in, don't forget to join my free 5-day studio growth challenge in the link below. In that, I detail full breakdowns of lead management, growing your client base, managing your schedule, calculating your rates, and communication hacks. But today, we're going to be getting into the nitty-gritty about quoting projects and avoiding situations like the ones I had last year. So first, let's address what not to do, and that is focusing on price, especially when somebody inquires, making the whole discussion be framed around, oh, what's your budget? Or this is how much I cost, or this is the dollar amount, or, oh, you're looking to spend this much, maybe I can bend a little bit. If the whole value proposition is around the exchange of the dollar rather than the actual access to a solution that you provide as an engineer, that's how people make their decisions. It'll never be based on the value you actually bring to a project or you could bring to a project. It will be based around the dollar amount. And when it comes to that, you will always lose out to someone cheaper. So, with that, the dollar amount is important so you feel valued, but that's a separate conversation you have with yourself to go, this is what I am worth and this is what I charge. But when somebody inquires, do not focus on the dollars and the cents. You need to just focus on listening to their needs, observing their needs. And this is where I think very early on, I was really stressed about being a quote unquote, and this is like 10 years ago, being a professional. So I would ask so many questions and I didn't really understand as deeply as I do now how the music industry works. I thought everybody had a set deadline, quote unquote. People were working to tight deadlines and budgets and deliverables, and they knew exactly the logistics side of what they needed from a service. So that's how I drove all my conversations. And I see a lot of engineers do this. Like, when's your deadline? How many stems are you giving me? How much are you doing this? What do you need for this? What deliverables? And those are all good, honorable questions to ask, but it avoids one massive thing, and that is observing your client's needs. Because ultimately, when somebody makes a purchasing decision or reaches out to engage a professional in a service, they have needs that need to be met, and those needs are sometimes logistics, but often those logistics are very loose in the music industry because the logistics of timelines and budgets and everything can budge based on somebody actually accommodating what they're after on the creative. So don't lose clients because you're focused too much on the logistics, and this is a lesson I've given myself, but to observe their needs. So in order to finalize their needs, quote unquote, you have some questions to ask. You have to be analytical in the way you approach your discussions with them. Now, you can either do this via phone calls or via email, or my new favorite is Google Meets, because I have Gemini writing notes in the background to summarize those conversations. But ultimately, you have to define what should your engagement look like. So what are they after? What shouldn't it look like? So what don't they want? Or what has happened in the past that they don't want to happen again, and if they have any references. Now, ultimately, when you ask these questions, you're not looking, or it can be dangerous to look for an absolute answer they're going to give you and you can run with. You need to read into the discussion. You need to read into their responses. You need to prompt further questions that help you solidify and understand their needs. Now, in these phone calls, in these Google Meets or Zoom chats, you want to be taking notes of what they're describing to you. And then at the end of the call, you want to do the following. And this is really important about framing a discussion with a potential client and not necessarily making it about the dollar amount. It's about addressing their needs. Basically saying, so this is what you said, ... Did I get anything wrong, or would you like to correct me? And then they can either clarify something or say, yes, you were listening, and that is great. That is exactly what I'm after. So you want to summarize that either at the end of an email or in the phone call itself. Summarize it and then give them some action notes. And this is really important about transitioning people from a conversation into progressing through to a project. And action notes look like this. Okay, in order to achieve these needs, we need to do the following. We need to get a booking down. We need to receive the stems. I need to send the following file formats to you. Like, there might be different action notes based on your conversation, but ultimately you want to include action notes for both you and the client to execute on. You want to have timelines for those action notes, and you want them to be a tangible deliverable, because what you don't want to happen is to summarize a conversation and leave it as, oh, I'll get back to you, because then you are leaving it completely open. Whereas if you give some action to achieving their needs, they can link the two and go, wow, okay, this is what I need to do if I want to achieve these things that we set out in this call, or these things I described to him in, or them in my call. I want to achieve these in my mix or in my production or in my master. I need to do the following things, or they're going to do the following things as well. Reciprocate some action notes at the end of a meeting. So let's do those. Let's engage in that, because you're not yet into the project. It can look like things like I said before: delivering stems, sending a proposal with the booking information, just little action notes, or getting some mix revision feedback for them. In terms of, if you as a mastering engineer, I often give mix notes to mixing engineers on their mixes. It can look like little action notes like that, where people are engaged in the process of delivering on their needs through these small actions, and those actions then lead into putting down a booking. But ultimately, in all this discussion, what I'm trying to highlight is the fact that as a good service provider, we focus our service on the needs of our clients. And yes, fiscally, not everybody is going to be able to afford you, or some people are going to have a greater budget than what you offer, and they're going to go elsewhere where they spend a bit more money and they might get access to other things. But ultimately, we want to focus our sales conversations with potential clients around the work, the value of the work, not the dollar amount. Because when you make it about the dollar amount, which I have in the past, it becomes a bad route. Like, I was really disappointed with myself last year on 2 projects, because they creatively were amazing. They were great clients, but I resented how much I was getting paid on those projects, because it was of my own doing to get those projects in the door. I really suppressed my rate. And yeah, it's a lesson learned. And through that lesson, it helped me hyper-focus a little bit more on how I listen and turn up for my clients in the preliminary stages of a project before it gets locked in, focusing on their needs. Now, I hope this helped you. This is a bit cathartic for me. I think that's the right word to put this together. And if you're interested in some more geeky business stuff with the audio business and mixing and mastering, click on this video here, because I'm 99.99% sure that whatever video I put there is going to be damn good for you. And until next time, take care.